So I don't know if you want the clip on microphone or if you just want to hold the microphone. Hold on. Perfect.
Let me know if I'm too loud and start blowing everyone's ears out.
The level should be good online. Just Mr. Mouse right here. Just you got the really open. Sweet. Appreciate you. Thank you.
That's what you said.
Welcome back.
I see how I agree. Yeah. You decide. I appreciate you calling me Molly. Yeah, I didn't see what I
didn't get myself.
very Molly. How was the office? Very funny.
Yeah.
I think I got it. Totally. Your world traveling adventures. Will you can do it? How long are you now? And Elizabeth, or either, maybe I'll come and check up on you. Good. Talk about how I should do more traveling. I mean, we kind of have a big beat Friday night. Yeah, or and then Friday. I Well, I
Hi. Oh, great. Oh, yeah.
Line of things. And that is just the. Not real very. Yeah, yeah, and the problem is sex. My sellers told my. This person. Yep, and that happens. State sales. And all that.
So it must be.
Talk about it. I'll buy it.
Full time now. Did you have? I haven't, with. Haven't.
Right.
Yep.
I try to be friendly.
I think it was.
Literally. If I could go on vacation, then I'm honestly. What's all the interesting? Yeah, but never see it.
Thank you all. Oh, meeting. Oh, it's going to be a lot of work.
100%. Yeah. I'm getting accused. Shout out to the now. Try to get this going, get this started as quickly as possible, and get you guys out of here as quickly as possible. Well, my name is Justin Dalkey. I am the rules and regulations of Northstar MLS, everyone's favorite terrifying phone call / email you could ever as we were talking about, we do try to be nice about most of the stuff and
Can they,
yeah, he's the sound of
if you're doing, now.
you guys just need to listen to my beautiful echo and everyone else online. You're welcome, I guess. I don't know. She kind of works a little bit better this way. I can just kind of stare this way and try to stand across a little bit. But like I said, as I said, from rules and regs, we're gonna be nice, just try to keep everyone in line, everyone keeps on the same playing field. And that's really what we're here for. And if you ever have any questions or need help, we're always open to that too. So never be afraid to call us with questions or anything. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started, shall we? Yeah, and then, this real bad. I thought I fixed it. Guess I didn't. So real quick, I go over what a lot of in terms of violations and errors. This is some of this stuff is automated. A lot of this stuff is stuff that is reported to us as well. But the biggest piece of that pie, that really big green piece, is projected close. Those are all dates for your projected closings that don't either A, get marked closed or get updated. And that's an automated system that does not detect it for up to 7 days after. Our system is only to find those errors 7 days after your projected close date exists. And unfortunately, a lot of them happen on Fridays. Yeah, a lot of those do come in, like I said, automatically. We do get a report to us. A lot of people that are looking at the closings or using this comps for a property they're listing or about to, or they have an appraiser that's coming through that would like to try to get that as well. But that's kind of the biggest one there. And the non-conforming bedrooms we'll touch on here on the next slide. Late photos, luckily we do not see any of those. Keep in mind, louder.
That's in the room.
Okay. So yeah, the lead photo check, that is also an automated, does come with, and all listings do need to have at least one photo entered within 2 business days of your listing. Again, it's just business days, not street calendar days or anything like that. But make sure you have those photos in that time period. It is a $25 per day first time offenses, we are usually pretty nice about waiving those as well, so don't worry about getting those unless you're a problem child, as I like to call people who do end up having multiples of those, especially over a 1-year period. So you kind of work everything on a rolling calendar. So as long as you don't make the same offenses over and over again, we're usually pretty good about it. Like that was late photos, public remarks stuff. Just when it comes to public remarks, make sure you're not entering your phone number or putting anything in there that says contact listing agent or anything along those lines, because those are automated as well. We do have a system that has word searches set up. We do look for those. So make sure you don't, a lot of times what it is we're copying their remarks and putting it in public remarks and just forgetting to take out their email address, their phone numbers, or any kind of URL that you might have in there, especially if you have like an auction type listing or anything along those lines. Just try to be aware when you're putting your public remarks in there, just not to have anything that has directions, contact the listing agent or that phone number or that. And then a lot of this other stuff, like I said, we'll get to this on the next. Kill it. All right. Just a little too far. So again, kind of the common incorrect data notices. We're good. It's a little too far. But the common incorrect data notices, like I said, this is kind of the, it just doesn't.
Just let me
Okay.
know.
If I had a chime, I'd play it, but I don't have a chime. This is the kind of stuff that does get reported to us for the most part. It's not stuff that we do automatically search for. We have really no way of finding some of this stuff. But a lot of it is that finished square footage. Most commonly, we'll see your above grade finished square footage include your below grade finished square footage. Or for certain styles of houses, for example, like a 1.5 story style home, the above grade finished square footage will be double your foundation size, whereas typically in those homes you do not have adequate ceiling height throughout that upper level, so your square footage on that upper level should be typically a little bit smaller than what your main floor is going to be. But again, that's one that does get reported to us most commonly. I do believe they come from appraisers, just on the way that people do send these complaints into us. But when we do get these complaints, they are from in the system. We do get them from either appraisers, brokers, or agents that are members and subscribers to Northstar MLS. So it's not, like I said, it's not just random people coming in, and it's not us sitting there looking. We're a department of 3 people, but we do not have time or the resources to be able to search for this kind of stuff. But moving on to the next one, the status incorrect notifications is typically what we send on these. And that usually comes from, again, either an agent or an appraiser that is just trying to use it as a comp, or an agent that has a purchase agreement on a property and it's not being disclosed in your listing. Just remember, within 24 hours after a purchase agreement is put in place, it does need to have a contingency flag, whatever contingency applies best. You can use that, or if you've got multiple contingencies, I say whichever one is probably going to end up taking the longest. That way you don't have to go in there and changing them in and out as you get through each contingency. But again, once you do have an accepted purchase agreement, you do need to disclose that in the contingency field. So just kind of be aware of those. Styles, for the most part, what we're seeing on styles is we're seeing a lot of stuff that's being listed as either a twin home or a townhome, and they're just kind of intermixing those. Just remember, on a townhome, you're going to have your CIC, you're going to have your CIC resale disclosure certificate. There we go. I can speak English, I promise. Typically, you're going to find those with your townhomes, your condos, whereas the twin home, it's just going to be that 0 lot line property structure. So, quieter. Thank you. And then style, again, just kind of continuing down that. Just make sure you're marking your 2 stories, your 1.5 stories, your modified 2 stories appropriately. They're pretty easy to interchange, especially when they're all in that same drop-down menu. So we do understand that it does happen. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I call it fat fingering. I don't know if anyone else calls it that, but I do that pretty frequently. I'll click the wrong thing or type in the wrong key, like on a sales price or a list price or something along those lines. But that's just kind of the real quick rundown on the styles. Foundation sizes, more often than not, what we see for that is just people totaling up your above grade and your below grade finished square footage, rather than just counting your full foundation size. So especially if you have a structure that is 1.5 stories, 2 stories tall, your foundation size is usually only going to be about the same size as your main level. You shouldn't include that upper level or anything like that. So just kind of be aware when you put those in there, you're just not doing the math for you. For the foundation size, it should just be, again, if you think of it as a satellite or a top view, look at the structure, that outline should be your square footage for your foundation size. If it's anything bigger, especially on a 2-story home or 1.5-story home, you're probably going to have the wrong number in there. But again, none of these result in fines. These are all just notices on the first couple offenses, just mostly, again, making sure it's not typos or anything along those lines. So if you do see these, don't be too afraid. And then non-conforming bedrooms, this is one that we do kind of have an automated system for. It's not the greatest automated system because we still have to intervene as humans and read the remarks and make sure that if anything says non-conforming, we have to read. And then we kind of compare it to what the number of bedrooms listed is against what is being claimed as being non-conforming. I had a few this morning that were just talking about non-conforming septic tanks, but I had to read, 500 characters of remarks to figure out that it was a septic tank, not a bedroom that they were talking about. So just kind of be aware when you're putting those in there. But a lot of times people report these, especially after viewing a property. They'll say, hey, I went through this house, the window size is not correct, or it's lacking a closet. Here's the really not so fun part for us is that anytime we send these out, people call us and ask us, hey, is this a bedroom? Does this qualify as a bedroom? The unfortunate thing is that we do not make those rules. That is all set by the city or the county that property is located in. So you do need to check and verify with them. I know the state of Minnesota has some pretty loose guidelines for what a bedroom is. It's 70 square feet, I believe, adequate ceiling height. I think it has to be 7 feet. A means of egress, and that's pretty much it. Don't quote me on it. I don't know fully in detail off the top of my head. But again, cities like St. Paul and Minneapolis, they do have some other requirements about window height, window size, closet. If it's needed, just make sure that stuff is all covered. And then when we do get a lot of these types of complaints too, we don't just send them out willy-nilly. We do try to check them and see if there is any previous listings that for that particular property. We'll check against that. And we will also check against the county record or the realist record to see if there is anything else in there where we can either verify or if there is some sort of discrepancy. That's usually when we send them. We don't just take them in on somebody else's word and send them up. We try to verify and make sure at least that what the complaint is accurate and fair. So are there people asking questions online? Okay, I say, otherwise we can ask a couple questions if anyone has anything here. Otherwise we'll move along to the next one.
This foundation, what if it's a porch without a full foundation? Well,
Porch?
a full basement.
Porch without a foundation. Typically porches are not considered finished, which is typically also not considered part of foundation, but there's a lot of things that can change that. If a porch is fully finished, does have adequate heating, it's permanent heating, I could say, it can't just be like a movable heater or anything like that. In that case, it may be considered finished and foundation. It would just be one of those things to double check with like an appraiser or even the county assessor to see if it meets their standards and their requirements for calling it finished. But general rule of thumb for MLS purposes, anything that has livable space above it or something that can be made livable above it, we do consider it foundation. Especially like when you think of a tuck under garage. A lot of times we do not include foundation size on a garage that doesn't have anything livable above it, but tuck under garages, we do allow that to be counted as foundation. So in that case, it could be foundation. If it's a crawl space, maybe. It sounds really close. It sounds like it would be considered foundation now that I'm kind of thinking about it out loud. But every situation is a little bit unique too. So it's kind of one of those things. It's 99% of the time it'd probably be yes, to be honest. But yeah, other than that, nothing else on this one. All right, next. I remember what I do have on here next. I think it's just how to report complaints real quick, and then we'll whistle through this. Yeah, reporting inaccurate data. So this is actually pretty quick. Again, like I said, most of the stuff that we just went over is all stuff that does get reported to us. The way that it all gets reported to us is pretty simple. If you pull up a listing, you just click on that yellow triangle, it'll open up another page. And then if you want to give it a real quick click here, it'll bring up another little window and you just kind of pick what you think is wrong with it. Whether it's inaccurate data, something in the remarks, something there that shouldn't be there. Wrong status photos, if there's something with the photos, like a person or identifiable people in those photos, send it in there or assign in a photo, let us know, just put it in there and we'll check it out, we'll take a look at it here. But when you do send these in, they're all anonymous. They come in with no names or anything like that. When you do send them in, though, if you could provide detail, it helps us out so much. Because we've gotten plenty of examples where they just say bedrooms are wrong, or this is wrong, or anything along those lines. And we just ask that you just please try to be specific. If you know exactly what it is, if it's the upper level bedroom on the back side of the house, let us know. Put that in there so that we can try to figure it out as quickly as possible. The only issue is the clear cooperation stuff, and I know that's a big question that you guys have kind of been running into, but we're going to touch on all that stuff. But those do, unfortunately, just need to be straight up emailed to us. We don't really have an anonymous way of reporting them since they're not listed in the MLS. We don't have that ability to do that. However, anything that does get reported to us, we do keep it anonymous. We keep your names off it, and we don't even keep it with the file when we do put those together. So just kind of be careful on those. But like I said, we're going to touch on those here on a real quick slide or two. Next one. Trying to remember. Yeah, withholds coming. Yeah, it is this one. Okay. I can never remember where I put this thing in this presentation. Yeah, so I just load her up and we'll go through it. But real quick on the withholds. So I know that this is something we kind of talked about a little bit before we started here. When it comes to the withholds, essentially there cannot be any marketing, there cannot be any advertising done on the property listing. That the way the rule is written is that it cannot be made public at all. I just had a big fight with a guy last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. He was arguing that he sent out an email just to other agents that were not part of his office. And I said that counts as marketing and advertising, and he wanted to fight back that that is not the public. And I said, it doesn't matter. If you have a withhold, it is considered an office exclusive listing, which means you guys can definitely discuss it within your office, within your brokerage. And I forget what program you guys use for your all of KW. I know Edina's got one, Coldwell Banker's got one, but if you put it on there and you share it in there, that is okay. We do not have a problem with that because it's technically still in-house, still with Keller Williams. So
Okay, I gotta back up.
yes.
We're all individually owned and operated.
Okay.
We are just this building.
Oh, you are.
So now that you know that, and I take and share my listings that are withhold with Keller Williams Uptown, Keller Williams Maple Grove. They are all individually owned and operated.
Well, those one, okay.
That would be a huge change.
Would be a huge change. I'm gonna have to check on that because now you've got me thinking. And I don't like thinking. No, when it comes to,
That's a whole different brokerage, where like Edina and Coldwell Banker, they run under one umbrella. Thank you.
yeah, I said, pretty sure it's new in that situation. You know what, let
I
me.
just wanted to be real clear, so people don't leave thinking they can do that.
Mhm. Yeah, you know what, I think you are correct. I think the answer is no, but I will double check with that because that.
Comes down.
What's that?
Comes down to the brokerage level, three individual brokerages.
Yeah.
Where whatever, Edina Realty or Coldwell Banker is one brokerage.
Yeah, and and I think that's what I always forget that about KW is that little detail. So yes, if that is the case, then no, you cannot share it outside of this office, this brokerage. No advertising, no marketing, no email blasts, none of that stuff. That will get you into trouble, but like I said, I will double check that and get back to you guys for sure. Yeah,
So I got a listing at 123 Main Street and it goes into multiple offers. And one of the losing agents says to me, do you have anything else coming on in the area? I say, yeah, actually, I've got 456 Main Street coming on. That considered, it's a different brokerage now.
yeah. So if you are gonna do something like that, technically that would break the rule. That would not be allowed, because that would be outward facing promotion of that property. Is it?
I was asked.
Yeah, and this is one thing that actually happened back when this whole clear cooperation stuff went into play back in March of 2020. We did allow that. That we said that was okay, and then a year later, we found out it was really getting out of hand. So they changed the rule and said no more sharing with anyone outside of your brokerage, even if they come to you. Because it just creates more problems and creates more issues than it not.
Were you supposed to lie and say, no, I don't have anything else?
Well, and that's where I was gonna say, this is where it gets tricky though. Technically, that breaks the rules. However, what we have been telling people is use your best discretion when that situation comes up. If it's someone you know, someone you trust, odds are you will not be reported. That's the biggest thing. With the clear cooperation stuff, it is all. It is, I know. It's very.
One could argue based on this, any free market that's dual, that's not dual agency or same brokerage is committing a violation.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if I see a Keller Williams Integrity Roosevelt listing that's mark, I mean, not that I turn anybody in my office, but if I see the Edina Realty listing that's a Coldwell Banker, and it was sold off market and sold, sold before print, that would be a violation.
It would be, there are situations where that may happen.
What time?
Yeah, I mean, if it's sold within the family, parents to the children, grandparents to grandchildren, whatever, and they have already got their own agents that they're working with, that might happen. But yeah, I have not liked this since day one, and I talking about it. Because it is messy. It seems very black and white until you get down into it and you go, well, here's the thing, technically a lot of it is technically that breaks them. That is not allowed. But if it doesn't get reported to us, I'm not telling you all to go out and break the rules or anything like that, but that's kind of the biggest issue is that a lot of it is, I guess subjective might be the best way to put it, is that it just depends on if you make friends or enemies with the wrong person and they report it to us.
What's the penalty?
It is a $1,000 fine. So yeah, that's kind of why if it's someone you know, if it's a friend from a previous brokerage that you now work here and they stay with a previous brokerage, you might be okay. But again, the bigger that bubble gets, and I tell this to people all the time too, I say, if you know 5 people from 5 different brokerages, you'll let 5 of them know and they're all like, oh yeah, we won't say nothing. And then all of a sudden they all submit offers, and the person, the 4 that didn't get their offer accepted, one of them might say, I'm ticked off from my buyers, I'm gonna report this, and I've got the proof. Then that's usually when we come knock. So, it's
$1,000 fine, $1,000 fine per agent, right?
yes, it would be.
So buyer's agent and listing agent.
Oh, no, sorry, just for the listing agent.
Oh.
Yeah, the buyers, I don't want to say they have immunity, but the buyer's agent does not have immunity, but it would not fall under that same clear cooperation guideline because they are not the listing.
What do you mean he doesn't have to be? Like, I understand the listing agent's responsible, but how can you say the buyer's agent doesn't have immunity? What does that mean?
They would get, the notice for it, and I'm trying to think of what it is.
So basically, if I tell my friend I have a listing and then my friend submits an offer, I'm gonna get in trouble, but they can also get in trouble.
If it gets reported, yes. Because if they're the ones that report it, they're the ones that report it, even though they took advantage of it. And again, this is where I think some of this rule really is stupid and is messy and tricky, and I don't get. But of course I have to deal with it all the time, so, but yeah, it sucks, it really does.
Is there a relation or is there a number of these that agent can get before there's?
Well, the first one is $1,000. The second offense would be 2,000. The third one would be 3,000 right off the bat. Once you get to a certain limit of, I think it's actually after 3. If you do another one after 3, there is more severe consequences about potentially having your access. You basically get expelled. Not suspended, but thrown out for a period of time. I believe it's for a full year. It's another one I'll have to double check on. You guys are asking questions that I have not been asked so long. Oh, I can imagine. I just haven't looked at deep in a while. Back when it was all new, it was all right here, but it's out for so long. These questions I haven't heard in so long.
Question, if someone says, well, Brian brought up, if someone asked, you got something else, can you tell the person, come back to me next week? Then get your client property online?
We could show that.
No, but I mean, go live.
If you say ask me again later, ask it like Magic 8 Ball, ask again later.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would be okay with that because you're not promoting a property, and that's another one that comes up a lot of times too, is that people say, I've got a property near Roseville, but not in Roseville, but coming on in a week or two, DM me, send me a private message. That's considered marketing. That, what you're talking about would not, because
I'm just saying, talk to me next week.
yeah, that you would have no problem with that because there's really nothing to trace there. But again, some of these Facebook posts that say something I've got coming in the next couple weeks, it's near Roseville and it's X number of dollars, that's too much. You've already crossed the line. So we'll look for those, and if they're reported to us, we'll look for them and we'll do our darndest to figure them out. But it gets really messy. It gets really painstakingly long. Yeah.
Okay, so you got sellers that are interested in selling free market, and you're not doing any marketing, but you have the listing withheld. They talk to their friends who are looking to buy a house, and their friends tell their agent about the house. The agent calls you asking about it and asks if you have this place for sale. What are you supposed to say?
Okay, so this is another thing that we talked about before we started this meeting here. Essentially, when the withhold permit is signed, the sellers are agreeing not to advertise and not to market.
So could I get fined if they talk to their witness?
Technically, you would, if they.
In almost every case, if you tell a seller that you're agreeing not to market your property and telling him you true. Every single seller saying, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, I'm not gonna sign.
Yeah. And that's the unhappy balance that we have to try to explain to people is that when it's withheld, it's not available to the public at all. It's not supposed to be marketed, advertised. If it's not in the MLS and up for cooperation, which that's a whole other thing at this point coming up in the next month or so. But if they don't want it on the MLS, the best way to maybe describe it to them is that if you're not putting it on the MLS, you're limiting your buyers. You're limiting it to who you know.
And in these circumstances, this is a listing agent going, finding a listing today to give them direction and help and pointers and inspection information and preoccupied staging advice and all of these things while they're getting prepared on the market. And that is why we sign the withholds. It's not that they don't want to go on the MLS. We're taking the listing now, so then we can give them
The time they need
professional guidance point at that.
Yeah, and that again, that's kind of where you run into a really tricky spot again. Is you're trying to do that in good faith and trying to help them out and get them properly set up and ready to go for when they're ready to go live. If they want to go live day of, obviously that solves every problem. You just put it in the MLS, you say, grab a sign in the yard, good to go. But if they want that ability to prepare the property, whether it's clean it, paint it, get it all ready for an inspector, whatever they're trying to do. If they want that time, and it's technically, since it's not on the market at that point, they're not supposed to advertise it. Now, another thing that's come up is estate sales, garage sales, all that kind of stuff. Are people gonna talk and gossip? Yes, we're all human.
Seems like no licensed real estate professional is making rules.
Seems like we're being set up to fail.
It's just like, this cannot be a licensed person making this rule.
Well, the executive committee is full of brokers and agents from across the state.
Yes, because this is stupid rules.
Well, and a lot of these rules are being implemented by NAR, and then we are trying to implement them the best way that we think we can. No, I don't disagree. Like I said, I've been dealing with this since March of 2020, and it's like a constantly moving target sometimes.
So if someone's gotten a $1,000 penalty and you guys have waived it, does that count as one of their three?
Yes.
And you need to hear that, people.
Yep, it will. If it does happen again, for the same agent, it most likely will not be waived. We still will probably reduce it as long as it's not an egregious, continuation. If it's once a month for an entire year or anything like that, then we're gonna have a problem. But for the most part, we will reduce them still, even if it is a second offense, but we're not gonna be as nice about it in terms of, like I was saying earlier, if you do it and your sellers are not ready, like they're not done painting, they're not done prepping the property, we are still trying to be nice and say, we get it, the sellers aren't quite ready yet, we're not gonna force you to put it on there. Technically, the way the rule is written, it is supposed to be entered immediately. As soon as that notice goes out, it should be entered as coming soon or active within 1 day. But again, in the name of not trying to penalize the sellers and ultimately not penalize you guys for trying to help the sellers out, we're still being pretty nice about that. But if it keeps happening and the same agent keeps doing it over and over again, it will kind of start working against you. But yeah, it's a lot. I know it's not fun.
Okay.
I'm thrilled. This sounds so much better than this right now. No, I get it. And I 100% get it. There's a lot there, and it's all very, like I said, it's all written very black and white, but there's so much gray area in there that I mean, we could spend probably 2 full days talking about this, and I'm trying to go over it.
Did you wear Kevlar today? Just.
Okay, so agent last week, their house is getting prepped, the painter's there, everything's going great. Guess what? The painter has an agent outside the brokerage and loves this house. These are real life things that happen.
They are.
Seller didn't go to church and tell anyone, they hired a painter. The painter wants to buy the house.
Yeah.
It's like that conversation.
And that kind of falls under the same level as even if the seller were doing that, if it's just somebody that was in there for a professional purpose, like in this case, a painting situation, or again, garage sales, estate sales, whatever. Again, you can't stop people from talking, but if it gets out there and it gets too big, if I were the listing agent in that situation, the best answer would be, they're not ready yet, talk to me when it goes live, or talk to me when you see it is coming soon. Go ahead and set up a search for it if you want, but if it's not in there, the best option for that listing agent in a situation like that would be don't engage. Because again, if you piss them off, they might come back and end up costing you $1,000. So it's choose your character, choose your battle.
I'm gonna answer my own question. I was just gonna say, in that scenario, could you TNAS the property? The painter is already, the painter told the other
You could do that.
person you could TNAS the property. And then,
Yeah, you could TNS it at that point. You obviously still couldn't show it in TNAS, but Yeah, you can put it in there as TNAS, and that's, again, the whole thing is that it's just trying to make it fair for everybody. So if that one agent knows about it, even if you found out, from a friend who, a friend who, a friend who, a friend who, they call that agent and they say, hey, I want to see this property. I want to get in there. I've got somebody that's interested. The easiest thing to avoid any clear cooperation issue is just throw it in there. Active TNAS coming soon, whatever. As long as it's searchable in the MLS, you're covered within one business week.
Can't from a coming soon or a TNA.
Correct. You can't show it in there, but it's still searchable. That's the biggest thing, is that it is at that point, once it's in there as coming soon TNAS, even pending, it's considered visible and viewable by all participants, all agents, brokers, and that kind of covers a little bit of it. Another little side part to it, things in TNAS, you're not supposed to advertise or market it. But again, it's searchable. It'll show up in people's searches, whether it's their client searches, the same search they have or whatever. But at that point, it would still be considered viewable by all from the MLS.
So when I had a TNAS, in that scenario, the agent wanted to look at it, I could throw an active for 30 minutes and turn it back to TNAS.
Essentially, yes. Yeah, if you were to do that, if somebody said, hey, I want to go there Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, you make a TNAS in the morning, noon, you make it active, and then right after they're done with the showing, go TNAS, you followed every rule perfectly, and I congratulate
I've done that.
you. Man, we should have brought up bomb squad with me. Kevlar wouldn't have been enough. Yeah.
Sorry.
We're ready.
Like I said, again, we could go hypotheticals all day. That's a lot of what we do at the desk. At the office in my living room when I'm answering phone calls, pretending to be in the office. There's so many hypotheticals that every one of them is unique, just like every property has its unique quirks, everything. It's all unique. Again, the biggest thing to if you're gonna walk away with anything from this is tell your clients not to market it. Don't post about it. Tell them not to post about it and say, hey, we're moving from the neighborhood in the next couple weeks. We're not listed yet. We're not live yet. Just, you look like
Social media.
Yeah, social media, and it'll solve every problem.
I mean, there's so much gray area caveats, as the MLS talk about just not allowing pre-market sales unless it's within the brokerage.
Right.
That's not something that we can do, unfortunately. We can't prevent that. Again,
It sounds like you guys are trying to do that.
What the whole goal of this rule is, I don't know if everyone remembers, 2019 or pre-2020. But you drive around and how many signs did you see in yards?
Yeah, coming soon.
Coming soon, because coming soon didn't exist back then. So they weren't actually coming soon. They were in there as a withhold. So you'd call that agent and say, hey, I've got clients that really want to get in there and see this property. They'd say, no. What did your clients do next?
Oh, yes.
You call the listing agent directly. That's what this rule is intended to prevent from happen. It's to make sure that everyone has a fair shot at that property. They're not being directed, they're not being pointed towards a listing agent that they're not already working with. That, I'm not kidding. That's how a lot of this came about.
I know, but now we're gonna get ways because some of the lawsuits that being passed, go right back to the listed agent.
And that's again, I was gonna talk a little bit about that today too, but there's so much that still hasn't been decided on. I don't have much I can really say. And I know it's frustrating because we're less than a month away from all these changes taking place. I'm frustrated because I don't know that much either. I mean, I know we sent that email out, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that, kind of outlining some of the new stuff and the updated rules handbook. It's, again, it's a constantly moving target. They tell us one thing one week and the next week they go, they decided not to go that route. So we're reworking that. But what they did publish is the updated handbook. That's outside of minor tweaks. That's the way it's going to go from now on. But yeah, it's Shoot me to the moon. Yeah, make it really hard. Let's see, where did I leave off? I don't even remember at this point.
You left off with withheld. That's how.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so essentially, like I said, the best thing you can do on the withhold is if you have a listing withheld, a property withheld. No marketing, no advertising. Tell your sellers, please, for the love of God, don't put anything out on social media. Again, if we're humans, we're social creatures, we're gonna talk to people, we're gonna let people know, hey, we're thinking about moving, our house is coming on the market soon. We can't stop that. Again, that's kind of the biggest thing is we cannot stop an entire population of people from saying, hey, we're gonna be moving here soon. But our house isn't for sale yet. Wink, we can't prevent that from happening. The only thing is that if everyone started playing favorites, there'd be about 6 brokers in this state and that's about it. So it would cause havoc and a lot of people would lose jobs and yeah, that's kind of the idea is again, just as long as it's in the MLS, it's fair game. If it's not in the MLS, your best bet is to not reply, not respond, or ignore them until you put it in there. If you put it in there that same day, go nuts. Again, the biggest rule is that you have 1 business day. So you can market it and advertise it on a Friday. As long as it's entered by the end of the day on Monday, you have followed the rules. There are a lot of people that do that. They put signs out in the yard on Friday afternoon. Start showings even at that point because they're still within 1 business day of getting it in there as active as a listing. Of course, if it's not in there on Monday, and we've got somebody that reported it to us saying, hey, I drove by, my clients wanted to look at it, we looked at it, and it's still not in there as active. That causes a whole other problem itself. But again, that's really the easiest thing to do is just not market it, not advertise it while it's withheld. It's like I said, that's where the black and white comes into play. Just don't do it. That's the easiest way to do it. But the more variables and the more factors you bring in, the more complicated it gets. And the more issues, the more potential trouble you can get into because it's again, the larger that bubble grows, the more potential people have the ability to say, hey, I heard about this property. It's not in the MLS. What's going on with it? Oh, and now it's sold. So, it goes from withheld to pending all in 1 day or, sometimes 30 seconds.
Commercial does not play by this rule.
Correct. Commercial does not play by this. What rule do they play?
But
What rules do they have? Yeah.
they don't have the cooperation with commercial.
Commercial is exempt as well as residential rent.
Rental as in like for lease, not property for sale. That's
No, yeah, like a home that's being rented out for $2,300 a month or what, those are also exempted. Ooh, hold on. I have to walk that back. I don't remember. Drawing a blank again. It up, but yeah, it's there's a lot there. Commercial, like I said, like you said, is exempt. You do not need to worry about that. That primarily stems from the fact that there is an entire MLS system in the state of Minnesota devoted entirely to commercial. We just have it as an option. All commercial listings are optional. They don't even need to be entered if you don't want to put them in, because that other MCARs, they have their own MLS system for commercial property and
We get rid of whoever's making the rules for us and have the min-car people make the rules and regulations for us.
we could try.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to just merge them all together and have everyone in there, playing by all of the same rules.
I don't think we have any issues with coming soon. Does anyone else disagree with that, or can we go to the next slide?
I actually do have one question.
Okay.
Your last line there, property must be switched to active for showings and or inspection. What is the difference from someone going, TNAS contingent upon inspection after an offer was accepted? Versus going TNAS contingent upon inspection if the property was active?
Yeah, you can ignore that inspection part. It does not need to be active for inspection. It only needs to be active if the buyers are going to be present.
So they could just maybe show up.
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, no, if it's gonna be showed, if the buyers are planning on being there at any point, it should be active. But inspectors can set up inspection appointments in any set. Canceled or expired, but they do have that option and showing time to select inspection in any status. But if the buyers are gonna be present, they should move it to active. You know, it's true. Yeah, so if you wanna move it on to the next one here. Yeah, and then this is, like I said, kind of some of the NAR stuff. This is just really basic stuff. This is the only stuff that's really kind of set in stone for the NAR stuff coming up here in the next month. But yeah, as of August 15th, all the commission fields will be removed from current and prior listings. And all these rules will be implemented as of August 17th is the current plan. But on the 15th, we're gonna take those fields away. There can be no mention of any kind of commissions. None at all. Whether it's in agent remarks, public remarks, driving directions, financial remarks, whatever, there cannot be any links to like your homepage. If there's anything about commissions on there, there can't be a link to that anywhere in the listing.
Agent only supplements?
Nope. There cannot be any commission information anywhere in the listing.
Can there be incentive talks component?
Can there be what?
Incentive.
Not incentive concession.
Incentive talks for the sellers, yes. When it comes to incentives like a buyer, a broker bonus or anything like that, no.
What a buyer concession from the seller. Can that
Yep,
be
those can be in there.
on documents?
Yes, yeah, again, as long as it's something that is being offered from the seller to the buyer and it pertains to the property itself, you can offer rate buy downs, you can offer a $5,000 seller contribution. As long as you keep that language vague, you're okay. If you start going, there's a $5,000 concession toward your buyer's compensation or your agent's compensation, that's where you're gonna run into trouble. Yeah, I say we went from policing language on how to offer commissions to how to not offer commissions at all at this point.
Okay, I'm correct. It cannot be an email generated through showing time either, correct?
Correct, yeah, as of today, that is correct. There cannot be anything from the MLS promoting a compensation.
And that's considered from the MLS because they took our information from the MLS.
Because it is accessed from the MLS, but again, they may end up changing that. There's still 3 weeks to go, believe me. Yeah, it's getting out of hand. And we've already heard some people say, well, what if I hide a percentage number on like a TV screen in a virtual tour or put it on a photo or so? Oh yeah, it's getting wild. Luckily, we already have rules in place that say no text on photos anyway, so that will take care of that issue, but
Like if my. For public comment, buyers, agents, welcome, any kind of.
that I have not heard specifically on, in the buyer agent welcome or anything like that. I think it's implied, but I have not heard any specific language on that at this point.
Okay, so at this moment, play it safe and no.
Yeah, and I've had people ask if they can put a broker bonus or anything regarding compensation in the remarks company. I said, you can until August 15th. And when the rule actually hits August 17th, there will be notices and all that kind of stuff will be getting sent out on the 17th. I think that's that first Monday after all these changes go into play, but 499,927. 499,927. No.
That doesn't work for a price?
Not if I know what the exact is.
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
99.92.
like I said, we can use more and more sneaky ways of trying to do that, but. That's a new one. I actually have not heard that one, but. Yeah, yeah. Now you're gonna have me doing more work again. Now I gotta look out for that.
There's something wrong with that. That says no.
It's the price. Yeah.
Genius. We can sell our houses for.
Rule followers, they just wanted to know.
Edit when that field is removed, you don't have to do anything on the back end, it's just.
No, when it.
So like if it's an active. There's nothing that
Just.
it just goes to everything else.
Everything will change. If we do have any remarks regarding compensation or bonuses or anything like that, you will have to go edit those out. We are not gonna do that. Just because, for the first month or so, taking that language out. But in the name of trying to save everyone's extra work, yeah, any kind of wording on there, just.
I mean, there have to, is there gonna be a flow for concessions, or is it just gonna have to be written?
That has not been decided. Originally they said yes, then they said no, and now they waffle back to, we might put that back in there because some people are asking that, it's a good question, honestly, to be asking that. For concessions towards, closing costs, carpet allowance, appliances, whatever. They originally said yes, then they said no, and now they're back to, well, maybe. So, but just keep in mind, any of the changes that do come with the NAR stuff, we will announce it. We will be blasting out another email. You'll have that splash screen in the morning, all that fun stuff. We're not gonna let everyone go into this blind.
Agents that are licensed in Wisconsin MLS, it might be worth joining.
Can
Right now, you only come on Spar or Northstar.
the concessions be stated?
Why do you say that?
Because
But, yeah, it's might have to report. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that somebody will say, hey, we want to.
Look like they listed as.
A dollar amount more. Looks that might fly on things. Again, more language is thrown out there that just. Yeah, until it's proven otherwise. I'm not gonna lie.
I have a pending transaction that's closing after August 15th. Am I wise to make sure I have a printout of the previous MLS stated compensation, or can that change, or what's going on there?
Generally speaking, if it's already in there, all the same stuff applies. It'd not be a bad idea to have that in your back pocket just in case. In terms of getting that compensation you've already agreed to. I mean, if you've already got the contracts and everything, you should be okay. But in case they try to push this one on you, I would recommend just have a copy of it. So we used to say that all the time, if somebody offered a bonus or whatever, and they submitted a bonus or an offer, and they were like, we're not giving you that, we changed it. Like, well, I submitted the offer on this date, you changed it on this date, so kind of the same thing. You got it, you did the writing. I'm sure there'll be more paperwork that comes from all that stuff too, from the state. Messy summer. We go back to 2018, pre-COVID, pre-everything. Forget anything on here? I don't think so. I hope that's the last one. I say, if you just want to give it a quick tap or pass. Throw it out the window.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that is the last slide. Perfect. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, we've already done the question section, but if anyone has anything, just start throwing grenades whenever you're ready.
Why don't you take the history field out that showed like, when you click on, days on market, it used to show like when a listing went ending and then when Right.
It's still there. It's still a cabinet. Yeah, it's an easy one, hooray. No, it's like the cabin from the left, depending on what view you're looking at, but yeah, that's all still in there. So yeah, you shouldn't have a problem with that. If you ever have any questions about the full history of it, you guys probably all know that. I don't know, maybe not, but anyone can view any of the history on any listing in Add. You may not make changes to it, but you can view the entire history of an entire listing in Add. You can see remarks changes, you can see price changes, when they did it, down to the minute, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and who did it. And sometimes it hasn't been me, depending on if they sent it in or not, but yeah.
So we just recently had a situation where somebody reported to the MLS that a single family house was inaccurately input and that it was actually an attached dwelling. So then we had to jump on board with that. Would you recommend that as a best practice, if somebody notices something in the MLS that might not be quite right, that as a professional courtesy to the listing agent, they just maybe call that agent first instead of trying to get them in trouble?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion, however. So, like 1998, people don't want to do that. Back when we were all friendly. I would say yes, but the problem is that if you call someone and say, hey, something, your listing looks a little wonky, and then, 5 days later or a week later, they get a notice from us, they're gonna know who sent it. Even though it comes anonymously to us, it doesn't take a lot of power of deduction to figure out who sent it. So it's kind of one of the, if it's a friend or someone, yeah, just be like, hey, that doesn't look quite right. But we've had people literally accuse back and forth numerous times and say, I know exactly who sent that. And I go, I don't. For minor things, not a terrible idea. For some of the more negative stuff, it might just be easier to stay anonymous. But it would make my life easier. I'd have a lot less things to have to sit through and figure out all the time.
I can't imagine.
What that?
I can't imagine they do.
Oh yeah, it's a lot, especially after a weekend. We're almost 200 of them after this weekend, so.
Coffee in your cup?
Something more. You guys off. Yeah, I say, hope I answered enough questions, or I mean, if there's more, I'll gladly stick around if you have something you don't want to ask out in the public. And I know a lot of it is kind of vague and a lot of it is generalities. And I know it may not be what you want to hear, but again, every situation is a little bit unique. So it's all black and white until you dig down. That's the biggest problem. Is there's always not always an exception, but there's always something that's like, oh, that had never been considered before. So
I will say thank you. I mean, generally speaking, we call and explain. Generally, you guys are obedient. We're all.
and that's one thing we do actually pride ourselves on. I used to have it on a slide saying, 98 to 99% of all the notices and fines we send out result in no fine at all. We'd rather educate, we'd rather teach rather than penalize. Penalizing, all it does is take money out of your guys' pockets and make you really angry at us. And those phone calls aren't fun either. So, we do our best, like I said, to try to teach people and educate rather than, that's why I do these.
I want to go back to the 3 clear cooperation violations that escalate and eventually you get expelled.
Mhm.
Does that 3 renew every year, or is that a 3 in the lifetime of your license?
Hopefully it'll never happen. As of right now, it is, as long as it's not 3 in not a calendar year, but a rolling period. So if you get one in February, you get a second one in, let's just call it August, and you get a third one the following June, you're out, you're still within like that rolling period. Maybe the last one was in March, but
We get the idea.
you guys have burned me out. Yeah, it's a rolling calendar from when the previous violation. So if the first one happens in February, that's one. Next one in March, okay. The next one happens after that. way after that, it might be back to zero as long as it's past that previous one in March. That make the following year. So,
Hi, I get notifications for violations at the front desk email, and often here lately, there's a notification for an agent that you may potentially get this fine if this happens, or that hasn't happened yet. Is that you guys just trying to teach people? I mean, I send it to the agent and throws them into a tailspin. What they're even talking about, this isn't even true yet, it's not happened, why are they telling me I'm gonna have this big fine?
yeah,
It seems like somebody who's like trying to push buttons, or I don't know.
well, it is mostly in the name of trying to make sure people are aware. Yeah, and a lot of it is they're very wordy and they're very not simple to digest. A lot of, like, the biggest thing you need to worry about is right at the top where it says what it is. If it says notice, that's all it is. It's just a notice. Everything after that is saying if you don't correct it within 48 hours, it becomes a fine. If you correct it in 48 hours, you have 14 days to pay the fine. But in that case, call us, email us. We'll talk to you. Again, majority of the time we'll waive it. You won't end up paying anything, but yeah, I haven't liked our setup for that for a long time because it is very confusing in some situations, so.
Go back and forth, with and regs, back and forth, and it made no sense, it was just crazy.
Yeah, hopefully some of that's been solved. Won't get into details, but
The reg person said, okay, I get it, never mind what you're talking.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah, that was probably me at that. Yeah, it's. Again, it's also in the name of transparency, just trying to make sure what we're sending out, people understand it, but again, there's a lot to it. A lot of it is citing the rule, how it escalates, how it becomes a fine, and we'll work on it.
Don't get that disclosures are missing on the MLS.
Like the Tish?
One was just disclosures and one was actually my listing. And it was the Columbia Heights new inspection, but it was listed prior, so we were actually. Why, that's a neat business.
Yeah, so in terms of like the disclosures and the Tish stuff, we.
Some of you guys said, don't worry about it, it just indicated someone had made a complaint.
Yeah, basically, when it comes down to those kinds of things, those are legal requirements, not MLS requirements. So when we get those types of complaints, we send those out to be like, hey, if somebody noticed it's not available, it's not ready. The people they would actually make that complaint to is the city or the county or the state, depending on what their complaint is. When we send those out, we close them right away. We just kind of go, hey, somebody complained to us that this is what's missing. It's not really our concern, but somebody has complained about it to us. So when you get those, if you don't have them, if you know you're in the right, you're fine. But you don't have a requirement for those being loaded. We just, state law says you have to have them available upon request. That's it. Or city law, city requirement. I see, yeah, somewhere, no. All right. Now that I've been standing in front of the firing squad for an hour.
Sorry, not sorry.
It's okay. Like I said, I feel bad if it wasn't as fulfilling as we hoped it would be. But there's a lot there. And it's always changing. It's always moving. So if you ever have questions, specific questions or anything like that, email us, rules@northstarmls.com. We will definitely answer it for you. We will get that set for you. Fortunately, my brain is just foggy today. I can't remember everything off the top of my head. I'm sorry. So, yeah, and like I said too, I'll stick around for a little bit if anyone has any questions they want to ask me specifically, and we can go through those. Other than that, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. You guys are all very quiet. I feel like I've done a lot of you angry.